Previously on this investigation, we uncovered Riley Shevlin's haunting tape, confessing that she had been running since Deana Cremins' death. We found a hidden letter in a safety deposit box, confirming that Deana had discovered a secret network of people, staff and possibly higher-ups, who met in the shadows of Somerville High, and that Riley Shevlin knew more than she ever told. But where is she now? We're heading to Kennebunkport, Maine, to a quiet town where Riley Shevlin may have hidden in plain sight. Her visits to a local store stopped in 2005. She disappeared. But something tells us her story isn't over. In Maine, we start by tracking down the property records. We believe Riley lived here, or at least came here often, in the years after she vanished from public view. But there's more. We also have the microfilm, the one we recovered from the Montreal archive. It contains pages upon pages of documents related to something known as Project Paladin. One page stands out, stamped with the words, Phase 3 Protocol. We had the microfilm digitized. Frame by frame, it revealed a chilling directive, written in black type, a form letter of sorts, addressed to the internal liaison of Somerville School District. The first line reads, If subject reports misconduct or dangerous behavior within the institution, the following protocol must be followed without exception. Redirect the subject's concerns to an internal officer for processing. The next line, Under no circumstance will external law enforcement be notified without clearance from the district's supervisory board or local law enforcement liaison. And then, after more redactions, if the situation escalates, the subject will be isolated and prevented from public interaction. At the bottom, there is a name, handwritten and inked out. We couldn't decipher it, but we now know this document wasn't just a theoretical protocol. It was a plan, a failsafe, and it ties directly to Deana Cremins' death. At the time of Deana's murder, these Phase 3 protocols were already in motion. We now believe Deana discovered something far worse than an isolated incident. She uncovered a systematic approach to silence any threat within the system, a network operating under the guise of normalcy. We returned to Somerville. There, we started tracking down the names in the Project Paladin documents, teachers, staff, administrators, anyone listed as a potential subject or contact point for the internal network. One name kept reappearing. David Richards, principal of Somerville High, now retired, but still active in education reform initiatives throughout Massachusetts. We reached out to him. He agreed to meet, but when we showed him the Phase 3 protocol documents, his face went pale. I never saw this. He admitted to us that he was aware of some strange behavior among certain staff members, but he always believed it was isolated to a few outliers. Nothing major, at least nothing that needed intervention. But that was before he saw these files, before we told him the truth. David Richards left the meeting abruptly. He didn't say where he was going, but we've since learned he drove straight to Camden Hawthorne Preparatory School, where Paul Halberd, Deana's former English teacher, now works. They've known each other for years. They've kept in contact, both involved in educational circles. We need to know what they talked about, and in order to do that, we need to get to Halberd. We're now working undercover at the school, posing as consultants for a new educational initiative. Through this, we hope to gain access to his office, his personal files. But the timeline is tight. We're racing against a clock that's running out on us. Every minute we wait, the people responsible get further away. Meanwhile, the Kennebunkport property search has turned up something unexpected. An abandoned cabin, small, isolated. But it fits the description of a place Riley Shevlin could have gone. It was bought in 2004 under a pseudonym, a name we didn't recognize. We visited the property last week. Inside, we found the remnants of a life lived in hiding. But most chilling of all, a lockbox in the attic. Inside that lockbox, a journal, handwritten. It belonged to Riley. We began reading. One entry, dated August 2006, said, I think they've found me. I'm not sure who it is, but I've seen a car parked by the edge of the woods. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm running out of places to hide. If this is my last entry, please tell them it wasn't my fault. This journal may be the key to unlocking everything. But there's something more. The final pages are filled with cryptic codes, numbers, letters, symbols. We haven't cracked them yet, but the pattern is clear. This wasn't just a woman's account of fear. It's information, and it's the last thing Riley Shevlin left behind. Soon in this part, we decode Riley's journal. We also reveal our undercover operation inside Camden Hawthorne Preparatory School. The truth about David Richards and Paul Halberd is within reach. But so are the people who want to make sure this case stays buried. And as we near the end, we ask ourselves, what will we find when we open the final door? The question is no longer who did it. The question is, who's still protecting it? Previously, we uncovered Riley Shevlin's journal, a chilling document that may hold the final key to the truth about Deana Cremins' death. We've now linked the journal to a hidden life, a secret location, and cryptic codes pointing toward a shadowy network that's been protecting something for decades. Our investigation led us back to Camden Hawthorne Preparatory School, where we went undercover to learn more about the connections between former Somerville High teacher Paul Halberd and the school's David Richards. But what we've discovered goes far beyond just a murder. It's a network that's still operating, pulling strings in the dark. Now it's time to decode Riley Shevlin's journal. The journal. The last few pages are filled with codes. Numbers, letters, symbols, each more intricate than the last. At first glance, it seems like a cipher, an encrypted message meant to hide the truth. But there's a pattern, a formula. The sequence begins with what looks like a set of coordinates. 42.4131 degrees north, 70.9125 degrees west. A quick search reveals it's the location of a remote island off the coast of Maine, a place rarely visited, a former military training ground that's been abandoned for decades. The journal's final entry reads, "The island is where they meet. I think it's where they keep everything hidden. The files are there. Deana's files. I was there once, but I didn't stay long. They're watching, waiting. If anyone finds this, get there. But be careful. There's more at stake than we know. The truth isn't what we think." That was the last entry. Riley Shevlin, whoever she was, had a crucial piece of the puzzle. She was telling us where to look. So we went. To the coordinates. Took hours by boat to reach the island. A dense fog rolled in as we neared the shore, and as the boat made its slow approach, we saw it. A small, dilapidated structure, half-sunken, hidden by overgrown trees. But more than just a structure, we saw movement. Someone was there. We docked the boat and moved in slowly, staying out of sight. As we neared the building, we could make out figures moving inside. Shadowy, indistinct. We couldn't tell who they were. But it was clear this place was still being used. Camden Hawthorne Preparatory School. The connection between the island and the school was undeniable. We knew it, and now so did they. We had to leave before we were spotted. But not before we saw what was left behind. Inside the structure, there were stacks of old documents, files, photographs, and, strangely, personal belongings. But what we found among those items was the most unsettling of all. A teacher's desk. Behind it was a photograph of Deana Cremins, her face, familiar but ghostly. It was taped to the back of a filing cabinet, behind locked drawers. The names on the folders in those drawers? Riley Shevlin, Paul Halberd, David Richards. But the most disturbing name of all? Subject X. We photographed the items and left, not daring to investigate further at that moment. We couldn't risk exposure. Back in Somerville, we sat down with Detective Marcus Bell, a retired officer who had once worked on the case. We showed him the evidence, everything we had uncovered in the past few months. When he saw the photograph of Deana Cremins, he stiffened. "I should have known." Should have known what? I knew someone was protecting them. It was right there all along. The list of names, the files, it's all connected. Detective Bell confirmed something we suspected. David Richards had connections to an underground group of educators, former and current, who kept the dark side of Somerville High buried. A group that was still operational, hiding behind the facades of normal school systems. But he didn't have proof. Not yet. That's when we turned to the Phase 3 protocol. We found more versions of the document in various archives, public and private. each with different redactions but the same chilling line. If the subject reports misconduct or dangerous behavior, escalate to internal review. Any external interference will be stopped at all costs. We couldn't ignore it any longer. It wasn't just about Deana's death. This was bigger. Who is Subject X? The question gnawed at us. We began looking into the other names mentioned in the Project Paladin documents, staff members with ties to the same protocols. Many of them had since retired or left the educational field. But one name came up again and again. Dr. Elizabeth Cutter, a former psychology professor at Somerville High, who was suddenly removed from the district in 1997 after an undisclosed issue. She moved to a private clinic in New York City. We reached out to her, and she agreed to meet. But when we sat down with her, she didn't look like the woman in the photos. Gone were the sharp eyes and confident demeanor. She seemed nervous. "What do you want from me?" We showed her a document from the Paladin protocol, one that contained her name. She immediately became agitated, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she said, "You have no idea what you're digging into. It's not what you think. This isn't just about Deana Cremins. It's about something far worse, far darker." She refused to say more, but she gave us one final clue. "You need to go back to the beginning. The answers are hidden in Somerville, in the old school library. It's all still there." We didn't hesitate. We returned to Somerville, our sights now set on the old school library, the one that had been abandoned for years. There, we uncovered something far more significant than just missing records. We found a hidden room, locked behind a false wall in the basement. Inside was an old filing cabinet, and in that cabinet, a final sealed envelope, stamped with a warning, "For eyes only, authorized personnel." Inside was a final document. It read, "Subject X is scheduled for termination. This will be the final test of Project Paladin." It was signed by David Richards, and at the bottom, written in bold, underlined, "The system will be completed." We don't know what that means. We don't know who Subject X is. But we know one thing. The system that protected Deana's death, that protected this network for years, is still active. And now it's out in the open. Soon in this part, we've uncovered the identity of Subject X, and will expose the full extent of the network that's been hiding in plain sight. Stay tuned and subscribe to this channel. Previously, we uncovered chilling details about Project Paladin, a secret protocol that operated within Somerville High and possibly far beyond. We found hidden rooms, sealed envelopes, and a dark connection between Deana Cremins' murder and a group of powerful figures. Our investigation led us to Dr. Elizabeth Cutter, a former psychologist at Somerville High, who warned us that the truth was more dangerous than we could ever imagine. Now, we know the stakes are higher than ever. The hidden envelope. In the basement of Somerville High's old library, we found a sealed envelope marked, "For eyes only, authorized personnel." Inside was the final document signed by David Richards. Contained a statement that sent chills down our spine. "Subject X is scheduled for termination. This will be the final test of Project Paladin." This document tied David Richards directly to the network we were investigating, a system of power, control, and secrecy that had been in place for decades. But what does this all mean? Subject X. Who is this person? Why are they marked for termination? And how does Deana Cremins fit into the picture? We needed answers, and we needed them fast. We began by revisiting Dr. Cutter. This time, we didn't give her a choice. We had too much evidence to leave her in the dark. When we showed her the final document, the one with the termination order, her reaction was immediate. Her face drained of color. "You don't understand what you found," she whispered, almost in a panic. "You're too close. They will come for you if you keep going." We pressed her, and finally, she relented. "Subject X was never meant to be a person," she said, her voice trembling. "It was a program, a protocol designed to ensure total control over the people involved in Project Paladin. It was an experiment, meant to test loyalty, to test the lengths to which someone would go to protect the network." Dr. Cutter explained that Deana Cremins had become entangled in the project after uncovering a series of unethical experiments conducted on students, faculty, and even parents, experiments designed to push the boundaries of human psychology and control. Deana had begun documenting the strange patterns she had noticed, but her discovery came at a cost. The more she uncovered, the more she became a threat to the system. And then came the cryptic files. The files that were found in the abandoned Camden Hawthorne cabin. They weren't just records. They were the final stage of Project Paladin. The experiment had reached a tipping point. Deana was caught in the crossfire of something much larger than herself. Something that used the very people meant to protect her as pawns. They saw Deana as a risk, Dr. Cutter explained. She was close to exposing everything. So they used Riley Shevlin, her former friend, to get close to her, to keep an eye on her. But it went wrong. Riley couldn't follow through. We now know that Riley Shevlin had been complicit in Deana's murder. But she wasn't the mastermind. Riley was just a tool, an unwilling participant manipulated by those at the top. She was meant to keep Deana silent. But Riley couldn't do it. Deana had already made copies of the documents, files that detailed the scope of Project Paladin, along with the people involved. As Dr. Cutter spoke, the pieces finally began to fall into place. Deana Cremins had become the target because she had discovered the truth. But the most shocking revelation of all? Subject X wasn't a person at all. It was Deana Cremins. The termination referred to in the document wasn't about ending a life. It was about erasing the evidence. It was about making sure Deana's discoveries never saw the light of day. And in a twisted turn of fate, Deana was the key to destroying the network. But where is the final evidence? Where are the missing documents? And what does the cryptic message in Riley's journal mean when it says, "The truth isn't what we think. We've tracked down more leads, more names. Our investigation has brought us closer to the people who have been operating in the shadows for so long." But with every new discovery, we're met with new obstacles. Threats, silence. The higher-ups are covering their tracks. We've had close calls. And as we continue to get closer, we realize they know we're coming. We've decided to follow one final lead, the person who sent the documents to us. Someone who knew what was happening but had the courage to speak out. We've traced the envelope back to a P.O. box in a small town on the outskirts of Boston. There, we're hoping to uncover the identity of the person who sent us the evidence. But we're running out of time. Soon in this part, we'll reveal who sent the documents. We'll finally put together the remaining pieces of Deana Cremins' tragic story. And we'll expose the full extent of Project Paladin, a program that has been operating under the radar for decades. And as we get closer to the truth, one question remains. Who will stop us from exposing everything? The final revelation is nearly upon us. Stay with us and subscribe to this channel. The truth is waiting. Previously, we revealed the devastating truth about Project Paladin, the network that operated behind the scenes, controlling and silencing anyone who came too close to the truth. We uncovered that Deana Cremins wasn't just an innocent victim. She was the key to everything. Someone who had discovered the darkest secrets of Somerville High and the people involved. But as we dug deeper, we learned the shocking truth. Deana's death wasn't just a murder. It was an execution. Now, we're getting closer to the final revelation. The question we've all been asking is, who orchestrated this? Our investigation led us to a P.O. box in a quiet Boston suburb, the last place where we hoped to find someone willing to expose the secrets of Project Paladin. The documents we received, those that revealed the termination order for Deana Cremins, came from here. We arrived at the address, a small post office near the outskirts of town. Inside, we asked about the P.O. box, showing the clerk a description of the person we were looking for. The clerk's face went pale. He hesitated, but then led us to the back office, where he handed us a small, manila envelope. There was no return address, only a single name written in bold, capital letters. Lucas Ford. We hadn't heard of him before. Inside the envelope were more documents, this time emails, all encrypted. But there was something else. A photograph. It was grainy but clear enough to see. David Richards standing next to a man we didn't recognize, in front of a building we knew all too well. Somerville High School. The name beneath the photo was short. 2 words. Lucas Ford. We had found him. Lucas Ford had been a key figure in Project Paladin. He wasn't just some minor player. He was the architect, the mastermind who designed the entire system of control. The one who arranged Deana Cremins' death to protect the secrets they had buried for so long. We tracked him down to a quiet suburb just outside of Boston. When we reached his home, we weren't sure what we would find. But as soon as he opened the door, we knew. Lucas Ford was no ordinary man. His presence exuded a sense of calm, and yet, beneath the surface, we could see the cold calculation. He knew what we were there for. We didn't waste time. We confronted him with the photograph. First, he was silent. Then, after a long pause, he finally spoke. "You've come far. Farther than I expected. But you're asking the wrong questions." "Who are you?" we asked again. "What is Project Paladin? And why was Deana Cremins murdered?" Lucas Ford didn't flinch. His expression didn't change. But there was something in his eyes. A flicker of recognition, as if he had been waiting for this moment. "You really don't know, do you?" he asked, his voice low and even. "You think it's about Deana, but it's not. It was never about her. It's about control. Power." He leaned against the doorframe, his gaze fixed on us. Project Paladin wasn't a simple experiment. It was a revolution, a way to shape the future, to shape society. Deana Cremins was a part of something much larger than you realize, something far beyond education. She was a threat because she found out that we weren't just controlling the students of Somerville High. We were controlling everything. The words hit us like a punch to the gut. He went on. "You think this started with her? No. This was decades in the making. We built the system from the inside out. The school system, the authorities, the media, the very people who were supposed to protect you were the ones protecting us. Project Paladin was about creating a generation that could be controlled. A generation that would never question authority." We were stunned. Lucas Ford's words were frightening in their scope. But there was something deeper in his tone. A sense of pride, as if he truly believed what he was saying. "Deana was a mistake," he continued. "She was too smart for her own good, too curious. She dug too deep into what we were building. When she found the files, we had no choice but to eliminate her. She couldn't be allowed to expose what we were doing. But there was more. You're part of something much bigger than just this town," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And you'll never be able to stop it." We pressed him. "Why are you telling us this? Why now?" He paused, his expression shifting ever so slightly. "Because it's too late," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "You think you've uncovered everything. But what you don't realize is the system is still in place. It's still active. There are more like me working in silence. And you'll never find us all. We've infiltrated every layer of society, every institution, every law enforcement agency. We control the narrative. We are the narrative." At that moment, it became clear. This wasn't just about Deana Cremins. This wasn't just about one girl who had uncovered the truth. This was about a system so ingrained in society that it had spread like a disease. A system that Lucas Ford had helped build, and one that he still believed was necessary. We knew we couldn't let him go. We needed to take him down. But as we reached for our phones to call the authorities, we heard the unmistakable sound of sirens approaching. We weren't alone. Suddenly, Lucas Ford stepped back, his face hardening. "You should have listened," he said. "Now it's too late." And with that, the door slammed shut in our faces. We don't know who was coming for us. We don't know how far this system reaches. But what we do know is this. The truth about Deana Cremins' death isn't just a mystery anymore. It's a warning. Project Paladin isn't over. It's just begun. Stay tuned and subscribe to this channel. After weeks of investigation, dead ends, and chilling revelations, we've finally uncovered the truth about the murder of Deana Cremins and the twisted conspiracy that surrounded it. What started as a simple missing persons case has unfolded into something far darker than we could have ever imagined. We now know that Deana Cremins wasn't just a victim. She was a whistleblower, a young woman who uncovered the shocking scope of Project Paladin, a secret initiative that had been running beneath the surface of Somerville High for decades, manipulating minds, controlling people, and shaping the future without anyone ever suspecting a thing. Deana's discovery threatened everything. The more we dug, the clearer it became. Deana was silenced because she was too close to the truth. But she wasn't the only one. She was simply the first. We uncovered documents, recordings, and witness statements that tied Lucas Ford, a former architect of the program, directly to the murder. Ford had played a pivotal role in creating Project Paladin, a network that reached far beyond the school and into every level of society. But Ford wasn't just a cog in the machine. He was the one pulling the strings. The question that remained was simple. Why did they let us get this far? The final confrontation with Lucas Ford revealed the terrifying truth. Project Paladin was far from over. In fact, it was still operating at full force, bigger, stronger, and more entrenched than ever. And the people who helped create it? They were still out there, working in the shadows. Ford's chilling admission that we were now part of the system's narrative confirmed our worst fears. We had exposed the tip of the iceberg, but the depths of what we had uncovered were unimaginable. As we left his home that night, we knew that everything had changed. Deana's death, Riley Shevlin's involvement, and the experiments on the students, they were all pieces of a larger puzzle. Puzzle we couldn't fully solve. But one thing was clear. The truth wasn't just about a murder anymore. It was about control, about power, and the forces working behind the scenes to ensure it stayed that way. What will happen next? What will we uncover if we keep pushing? And most importantly, who else is out there, still hiding in plain sight? The story of Deana Cremins may be over, but the real story is just beginning. The final chapter hasn't been written. The system isn't done, and the truth will never stop fighting to be heard. Thank you for following along with us on this journey. We will keep you updated. The case of Deana Cremins will not be forgotten. Stay vigilant. We'll be back.